You get the result the way you give priority to that action. Two things drive life, right? More, I want more, I want more, I want more. And second thing is, how do I hold on to what I already have? It's a very important thing to realize that we're all on a chase to fill something deep within us, which cannot ever be filled by any kind of outer success. It's not possible. When we can really see that there's so much more, then we play every game fully. Satyam param dhimahi. Satyam param dhimahi. Satyam param dhimahi. Jai Gurudev.
Esha te bihita sankhye buddhiryogi tvimam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Arjuna, this attitude of mind has been presented to you from the point of view of Jnana Yoga. Now, here the same as presented from the standpoint of Karma Yoga, the yoga of selfless action. Equipped with this attitude of mind, you will be able to throw off completely the shackles of karma. Neha bhikramana shosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate magato bhayat. In this path of disinterested action, there is no loss of effort, nor is there fear of contrary result. Even a little practice of this discipline saves one from the terrible fear of birth and death. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kuru nandana bahushakayana yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayina. Arjuna, in this yoga of disinterested action, the intellect is determinate and directed singly towards one ideal, whereas the intellect of the undecided, ignorant man moved by desires wanders in all directions after innumerable aims.
So I think we have to read those last 3-4 verses sort of together, right? As Gurudev said, it's the yoga of intellect. Perhaps we have to understand it like this, right? Sharp, clear, centered, focused intellect is also another way to move towards freedom, or it's also another way for Arjun to get out of this state of grief and loss and confusion and anxiety, that wiggliness that he's going through, where he's almost paralyzed into inaction. Right? You see what the Lord said, the last thing, this is really step number 1. In this path of disinterested action, there is no loss of effort, nor is there fear of contrary result. Even a little practice of this discipline saves one from the terrible fear of birth and death. How? Step number 1, Arjuna, in this yoga of disinterested action, The intellect is number one, determinate and directed singly towards one ideal. This is the key. Undivided mind, undivided decision. Okay, just realize what is really being said here. That declare, be clear, be absolutely certain of what your goal is. Not focused on the goal, but what is your decision? What is your choice? Be very clear and get behind it. So as sadhaks, and as the Lord has just given the highest of knowledge, Sankhya Yoga, right? What is the declaration? What is the clarity of awareness that's required? That my priority is that I am driving, running, walking, committed, focused on the path of spirituality. That I am a seeker. This is the focus. This has to be number one in order. It's not, by the way, oh, I have this to do, I have that other thing to do, and I have to do my laundry, and I have my party to go to, and when all that is said, oh, look at that, I have another half an hour I also need to do, I think I'll meditate. It's not that. It's what Gurudev in many ways has often said, priority. You get the result the way you give priority to that action. Gurudev's video, he said, being 100%, being focused, that's the word he used, focused, really declaring step number one, I am a seeker. My priority and purpose in life is to go towards my spiritual essence. It means asking the big questions. What is life about? Who am I? What happens after I die? Is this it? There has to be more. What is me? What is mine? How has this world come into being? When you start to ask these questions, you know that you are a seeker, but we actually in some ways don't own it. It's something that's happening in the background as by the way. Do you understand what I'm saying, what I'm suggesting, or what Gurudev's video and Lord Krishna is talking about here? No, we are not that clear. I know that it appears sometimes like we are, but we'll see that, yes, I'm a seeker, but we don't lean in that direction. When given a choice, what is necessary and what is important, we don't necessarily lean towards that which moves us towards our goal. Whether we get there or not is not important. Remember the prior verse that we just read. Even a tiny solpa, even a tiny amount of action in this direction, even a tiny amount of commitment, focus, attention, effort given towards the spirituality of oneself, discovering who one is, what one's essence is, it can never go to waste. It will not yield anything but some good result. That's really what's being said. So as simple as it sounds, this is something to think about. How focused, how committed, how much is your own search, your priority? Look, the fact that we're here and you're sitting here on a Tuesday, perhaps after a long day of work, right? And plugged in at 6 o'clock in front of a computer already says that this piece is important to you, to me, to you, to us. But if you notice through the day, it kind of goes into the background when you have to make a choice, when we have to make a decision, from which direction do we lean? It's not don't do the things of the world. It's not run away from the world. It is not that you have a priority of spiritual seeking or I have a priority if I leave everything and only do this. That's not the case, because remember, at the end, Arjuna is going to fight. You do what you have to do, correct? He's going to fight. It's not that he now says, okay, I got it, yoo-hoo, eureka, 100% focus. The most important thing is to discover myself, and so I'm going to leave my brothers hanging and everything else and the citizens, and I'm just going to run off. That is not it. That has never been the case. If you look at any scripture that we read, whether we read Ashtavakra or Yog Vashishta or anything else, you see that the Ramayana goes on. It's a long epic. Why does it go on? Because they live a full life knowing the essence, right? Ashtavakra, he gives his Gita, and then Janak Raja rules the country and goes on to be son and father and brother and husband and so on and so forth, just as Rama does. So it's not leaving something behind, it's to declare, to be focused that my priority is this. I am a spiritual aspirant. Right? Then the mind becomes focused. Then what Guruji says, united. Intellect, mind, emotion, everything comes together. Only then can you give your 100%. Determined action. That is what he's talking about. Arjuna, in this yoga of disinterested action, and he will later on describe what actually is disinterested action, I'm assuming so. The intellect, mind, buddhi's choice is firm, directed, single towards one ideal, one purpose, one goal. Whereas the intellect of the undecided, parentheses, ignorant men moved by desire, wander in all directions after innumerable aims. Otherwise, we do what we have all been doing. We're trying to fill a hole, a gap, something in each one of us, in every human being, conscious or not. There is this gap, this sense that there has to be more. Two things drive life, right? More, I want more, I want more, I want more. And second thing is, how do I hold on to what I already have? Holding on and grasping for more. These two things drive our life. That's a sign that there's some gap. But unfortunately, or fortunately, doesn't matter, perhaps that's just the way life is, the more is towards more followers, more money, more fame, a bigger house, more cars, a bigger house, more courses, variety of courses. Even Guruji said it's not so much knowledge, listening to this thing, that thing, the other thing. It's about taking some knowledge, some piece, maybe one principle from the Art of Living basic course and fully committing to it and getting behind that one ideal. But because we are not clear that my priority, my commitment, my focus is that I'm a spiritual aspirant, and there I give my focus, my priority, and I do everything else after it. After as in not lesser. The driver is not the other things. Make the money, have the fame, have the fortune, have the house, but that is not your goal. That is not your priority. That is not your end result. And if we do that, then whatever the result, we will be able to shake it off and get back on the horse, so to speak. Are you hearing what I'm saying? It's a very important thing to realize that we're all on a chase to fill something deep within us which cannot ever be filled by any kind of outer success. It's not possible. The bigger the house, the bigger you'll want one. And Gurudev spoke about comparison. However big your house is, you move from one neighborhood where your house was small, you move to another house or another area where the house is big, but now your neighbor's house is also bigger. So then you start looking over there and maybe they have something special in that house and yours doesn't. So then you think, I have to do something more to my house. So you remodel and you add another story to it. Is that enough? No, because they got a neighbor on the other side who just comes and knocks his whole house down and builds a brand new thing. And he has an in-house theater. And he has a guest house that's the size of your entire house. Now you're going to want to hold on to what you have and want more to your house. And this chase is endless. And the reason it's endless is because we're not actually pointed towards that which is the self, the essence. Are we clear? So this is step number one. This is what is really meant when Gurudev says it's the yoga of intellect, really getting clear internally within oneself about what one wants, what one's priority is, and putting it out to the world. We're actually ashamed of these things also. No, because everyone else is talking about having a bigger house. We decide, oh no, I'm going to join all the hamsters in the world and start running on that same rat race. I'm going to be a fatter hamster. It's a crazy thing. At the end of life, I succeeded. How did you succeed? I became a bigger, fatter rat than my neighbor. Oh, great. This is the rat race. We end up being a fatter rat. You know, maybe the hamster wheel gets a little bigger, perhaps, and maybe that's something to be happy about. But the point is that whole doesn't get completed. And so again and again, the universe takes us through its ups and downs to say, hey, get clear. Focus in. What is your priority? What is your goal? Where is your intellect, your mind coagulated? Gurudev used the word uniting the intellect, the mind, and the emotion. And the moment we do that, a certain kind of strength and power comes to keep going. That is where prana, resilience, grit comes into existence. Are we clear? Otherwise, you notice, look, anything great, anybody who's come up with anything great in life, I'm not talking just spiritually, I'm saying anything. You know, whether it's Amazon or Tesla or any Warren Buffett, you name it, whatever inspires you, anyone, an astronaut, a basketball player, what do they have? Very pinpointed, focused commitment. And behind that comes again and again and again, getting off the horse and going for it. And maybe all those things in some way or another, maybe they don't lead to results. But here, Bhagwan already promises, not an iota will go to waste. Sulpa, not even a tiny amount is wasted if you give your focus and your attention and your clarity and determination towards going for what Bhagwan has been suggested. What Gurudev calls being centered, relying on the self. I love the words that he used. I wrote it down. Just let me find it. He said, focus on being is focus in action. And 100% focus in action is focus on the being. There's no separation. There's no undivided mind. When everything is, I'm going for it. This is going to happen. I'm going to do this. Where are you? 100% in the present, right here, right now. Isn't it? 100%. Then you naturally, effortlessly are not thinking about the result. Listen. Selfless action is how it's been described. So we all know this idea of not paying attention to the fruit. You do not have any say over the fruit of the action, only the action. But then we start to wonder, well, how can I not have focus and attention on the action, on the result of my action? Don't we have that? How am I going to do that? I have to raise my children. So of course I'm going to be focused and I want my son or my daughter to be, the king of the universe. I want that. How could I not want that? You know how when you're 100% behind something, you're not looking at what's going to happen at the end. You're in the moment playing the game to win 100%. And then whether you win or lose, whether the result is what you wished for or not, greater or lesser, you will still be centered. You will shake it off and go for it again. If you look at anyone who has achieved anything great, an athlete, a business leader, a politician, they don't They know where they're going and they just keep going. I have used this example before. I remember an interview with Michael Jordan, basketball player. They asked him, he had like a record-breaking, shots through the hoop, something like 3,000 plus. And they asked him, Michael, how did you do that? How did you get 3,000 plus shots through the hoop? And his response was, I shot over 300,000 without looking back at the ones that didn't go through the hoop. Are you catching on? It's when we're divided that we struggle and suffer. And most of us are divided. We decide, oh, I think I'm going to go and be a lawyer. And while you're in law school, you say, oh my God, I don't know, maybe I should have been in medical school. And then you get out and you go to medical school. And then you say, oh my God, I'm in medical school, but perhaps it's not medical school that I wanted. Perhaps I need to be an art of living full-time teacher. And then you become an art of living full-time teacher. And then you say, oh my God, I didn't know this is what it would be. I would have to deal with, all these people. And I think that I'll go back to law school. Yes or no? This is not about running away. It's actually getting behind yourself. That is called getting centered. Earlier the conversation was mentioned about playing to win or playing not to lose. And now you see how it ties in. When you're playing in your life to win, win means not over someone, means going for it 100%. That is concentrated focus, risk-taking, that has awareness in it, both simultaneously together. It's not recklessness. Intellect is sharp, as Guruji says. Emotion is centered and balanced. Perception is wide, and you're fully in action. This is 100% in action, which means 100% or focused on the being as the base. Naturally, is it not your experience? I'm asking you this question. Is it not your experience that when you've done something 100%, maybe it's planning a wedding, maybe it's planning some event for Guruji, maybe it's planning your business, whatever it is, there has been a moment where you've been so focused that you're not focused on what if it happens or doesn't happen. You're not focused on the result. You're just in the act of moving forward. Yes or no? How many have had this experience? See, that's what he's talking about. Yes? Let's read one more.
Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitaha vedavadaratav partha nanyadastiti vadinaha kamatmanasvargaparaha janma karma phalapradam kriya vishesha bahulam भोगैश्वर्य गतिं प्रति भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तयापहृत चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते. Arjuna, those who are full of worldly desires and devoted to the letter of the Vedas, who look upon heaven as the supreme goal and argue that there is nothing beyond heaven, are unwise. They utter flowery speech recommending many rituals of various kinds for the attainment of pleasure and power with rebirth as their fruit. Those whose minds are carried away by such words and who are deeply attached to pleasures and worldly power cannot attain the determinate intellect concentrated on God.
So basically he's saying rituals. No, there are lots of people who are full of desires for the world. More money, more bigger house, bigger garage, all those things that people want. More followers and all that things. There are rituals in the Vedas, he's saying, that people are evangelizing. If you do this prayer and this ritual and this thing, then you will get bigger health, more money, more peace. You know, you'll annihilate your enemy. Do you understand that Lord Krishna is saying, don't give any importance to this, because it's nothing more than another fixation, just like chasing a desire here and getting lost. You know that the Vedas have two things. If I can recall correctly, the way Gurudev has explained it, there is the Upanishad, Jnana, and then the rituals. Right? So there is the worldly desires for wanting more. And we give our effort and we are the doers and we're going to go for it and we want more money, hoping that that will give us fulfillment, satisfaction, freedom. That's what Gurudev is talking about. Without the freedom, there is nothing. In the end, that is what we seek. So, as I spoke earlier, there is this notion that I fill this gap for fulfillment, contentment, trupti, freedom, through achieving more and holding on to what I have. So that's one layer of desires. Then there are those second layers of desires, I'll go to heaven and have a better life. You have heard about such things. No, if you do these, then eternally and forever, you will have a better life. If you can go to a church, and if you've done a lot of bad deeds, you can go and give some huge charitable donation, and then somehow all of that will be forgiven and you'll live happily ever after in some heaven. You remember there were protests against this. I think like Martin Luther King used to protest against this sort of idea of repentance because it gave permission. But there is this secondary tier of fulfilling that gap at some time in the future in heaven. Even the Vedas are filled with rituals that you can do to please some god so that you can have more wealth and more money and more fame and better health and whatever it is that you desire. You know what I'm saying. Now, why have that along with the Upanishads? Upanishads are final freedom. And over here, there is this rituals. Anyway, human beings are going to do all kinds of things immorally for more wealth, more gain. So instead, there is this sort of ethical way to go for more. But remember, it's a desire like the desire of the world, the desire through heavens and grace and gods. At some point, that also runs out and we're back at square one. And then there is this finality of freedom. So prayer and rituals and all those things, they are there. But Lord Krishna is saying, just like Guruji said, blah, 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 don't give it any attention, push it aside, stay focused on that directed goal, that clarity. Yeah? Those who are full of worldly desires, and devoted to the letter of the Vedas, who look upon heaven as the supreme goal and argue that there is nothing beyond heaven, are unwise. I'm just rereading it to you after that little chat. You see what Bhagavan is saying. We have desires for what we want here, so we start praying and we do rituals to get that. You might get it, but at some point that will run out and then we're back at square one again. They utter flowery speech, recommending many rituals of various kinds for the attainment of pleasure and power, with rebirth as their fruit. That's what I mean by we're back where we started. You have worked really, really hard, or you won the lottery. Now you have everything you want. Boom, it's like praying to the gods. You won the lottery. At some point, the money in the lottery that you've won gets used up. And then what? You're back where you started, looking for a job, delivering newspapers, because now you don't know what to do again. Yeah. So don't get caught in it. That doesn't mean don't pray. Yes, there's a sense of prayerfulness. Let there be peace. Let my family be happy. If it's your wish or better, give me the job, but that is not your priority. That is not your focus. That is not what will define who you are and what you are. That is the most important piece to understand. It's not against prayer, or it's not against rituals or repentance or whatever the words you want to make. It's that that is not your goal. Because if that is the goal, you may attain it, but then you're back with rebirth, the cycle again. Are we clear? Last sentence on that same. Those whose minds are carried away by such words and who are deeply attached to pleasures and worldly power cannot attain a determinate intellect concentrated on God. If all we're doing is trying to fulfill our little desires, and if that is our goal, if that is our focus, if that is how we have a sense of who I am, a sense of self-value, worthiness, sense of self-identity, then you cannot be one pointed towards the ultimate goal. Maybe I have to say it like that focus on ultimate freedom, sense of self, or God, as the word is in this translation. Clear? So beautiful. No? So beautiful. No? Have everything, focus on everything, give all your effort and energy. If you know the goal is something much bigger than where you're efforting, focusing, then you will do it with less anxiety. That is the point to understand. Correct? I said basketball. What is it? You have the final World Cup or whatever it is, the final games, right? You have lots of games along the way. You play each game fully, but that's very different from playing the last game, isn't it? And while you're playing each of those games, if you know that the most important is the end game, then you play these things freely, 100%, with a certain kind of freedom inside. You will play to win in life, whatever it is, work or friends or family or business or social impact, anything, seva, anything, fully. If you know that does not define who you are. The athlete who says, I am somebody because I won the gold medal, when he gets off that podium, doesn't know what to do. Now what? If you reached the end goal, what do? There's the story, I forgot which astronaut it was, but when they went to the moon, all their focus and goal and the highest and the ultimate was to go to the moon. And then they went to the moon and came back. And as I said, I forgot which astronaut, but after he came back, life was over, because now what do? I've already attained what I think is the highest. Alcoholism, addiction, family falls apart. He ends up basically in a shelter. But this has happened to many, many, many athletes, many, many great performers who see who they are, their center of self, as what they achieve. When you know those are things that come and go, there's some higher, greater goal, then you don't have anxiety. Then you play fully, just like when you play with your kids, chutes and ladder. You go up and down and you play and you enjoy and you have fun and you don't get caught up. It's so practical, It sounds so lofty when you just sort of hear it, but if you start to do some manana, we start to think about it a little bit, you see, like, it's true. If I teach a course and 500 people come, I'm important and I feel good, and now I'm entitled to go to Guruji's room, and now I will get some pat on my back, and he just doesn't even blink at you, huh? Only 500? Why not 50,000? Have you ever seen Doesn't matter, whatever you think, you know, sense of self grows at an accomplishment. No, then you think who you are, the big question of life is tied to that one goal. Then all of you is, you know, sleeplessness comes and all of you is caught up in it. And then you don't make clear centered decisions. Haven't you noticed that? Yes. Choices are not so clear because high anxiety happens. No? Just a second, Guruji said that in the very beginning. If you're not united with yourself, the intellect cannot be bright and brilliant, emotions are not centered. And when emotions are not centered, when they're all over the place, how can there be happiness? Without peace, you cannot find satisfaction. You cannot find happiness. Get back into yourself, Arjuna. Bring your body, your mind, your emotions, everything into one place. Focus on that one goal. Who I am, what is life about, what happens after I die, what is mine, what is not mine, what am I doing here after 70, 80, 95 years, 9 billion people, another 9 billion will come, they will all do the same thing. Is this it? Am I just like a cat and a dog and an animal in the street somewhere, a squirrel gathering nuts and sticking them in a hole somewhere? I don't even know how many I have, walking around putting all the little, you know, nuts, acorns in a hole, getting in, squeezing self out, squeezing into the, it's really, if you break it down, you say, oh my God, how am I any better? I'd gone for a walk and I was watching this squirrel running back and forth, and this dog was eyeing the squirrel, you know, waiting to pounce on it. And the squirrel would quickly get up the tree, and then, you know how it quickly moves it like this, and the dog would doing that. I was like, oh, how are we any different? The squirrel is on top of the tree going, ah, you stupid dog. And the dog is going, oh, I'm somebody, wait till you come down, chomp, you're out. And the squirrel is just gathering its acorn and putting them down into the hole, and oh, the winter. This is California. What are you talking about? It's like this. There's something more. And when you can see it in that lightness, you know, when we can really see that there's so much more, then we play every game fully, centered, calm. When we don't think we got what we wanted, we shake it off and get back and start again. Yeah. Okay. That's 7:15. We'll officially close and then I'll take questions. All right? Eyes closed a moment. Satyam param dhimahi satyam param dhimahi satyam param dhimahi. I stay closed and a nice long breath in. And let it go. Jai Gurudev.
And then when he says focus on God, what is his view of God? Who is God? What is God? I mean, what does he mean focus on God?
Well, I don't know if he said focus on, he's just saying have a determined, one-pointed commitment, maybe that's a different way to understand it. But what does he mean by God? Perhaps we will get to it a little later. He
Okay.
hasn't yet defined it.
Thank
Okay. We can talk about it from our understanding, but let's wait till we get there. He will come to it. And for now, the answer is Atman. Remember, he has just gotten through giving Sankhya knowledge, Sankhya Yoga. And he described what is Atman, the qualities of Atma that we can think for right now is what he means. Is that clear also? Right? He just got through describing the eternal, effulgent self, conscious existence and bliss. That we can call God, or that perhaps is what Krishna Bhagavan is pointing to. Yeah? Okay. Nita, yeah.
I don't know why I'm showing as Neeta Raj. Sorry, my name's not Neeta. So I'm Kunjal. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Your
So
names don't matter.
yeah. So my question is, we are understanding that we have a single goal, which is as a seeker, and then rest of the things can fall in place. You could have career, you could have other things, but what happens is when you make one thing your single focus, the rest kind of fall behind. To go parallel is difficult because physically there is only so much time and energy to do things, right?
Listen, it's not have one goal and focus only on one goal. Again, I think people, you guys should go back and re-listen to the talk. It is what is your goal, as in what matters? What is the most valuable? Maybe think of it like that. Other things are also important, they also matter, right? It's not that family and health and business and taking care of a home and children and all those things don't matter. They are there. But if you think that is the goal and purpose of my life, that is what we're discussing here.
Okay.
Is that clear? I use the word purpose. Maybe let's speak about it from that perspective. We think that working, I used the conversation about a rat race, right? Accumulating, holding on, and gathering more acorns while you climb up and down a tree with a dog chasing you is the purpose of life. If we think that, we have a problem. That is when all the other goals become more difficult. That is when we find we cannot get back on the horse with these other goals. And there are people, we ourselves have been caught in, over time we start to realize, okay, you look at life with a wider lens. But there have been times when we thought the only thing and the most important and the biggest purpose of my life is to graduate, is to accumulate money, is to have a life partner, is to have kids, is to have a kid who's a doctor, not an Indian chief, but a doctor. See what happens. Hi, Toba, anxiety. But if your purpose and your clear, mind is clear, intellect is clear, that the purpose of my life is bigger than accumulating acorns and running up a tree before a dog catches me, then there's something else. There's different kind of freedom. Is that more clear? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If I may, sorry, I'm not on camera. Like in your speaking of it, I'm seeing the relating to my own life and how I've come to discover it's almost like maybe I've used the analogy of a bowl. Like the bowl is the greater purpose, and it holds all these other aspects of our life that we could get so caught up in thinking they are the purpose, but they all connect to something greater and deeper that's like holding all of that.
Remember, the purpose of your life is the bowl, so that you can put the acorns in the bowl and remove them when you want, and put something else in the bowl and remove that when you want. The bowl is the priority, the focus, the purpose. Thank you, Mary. I think you should read the next 2 verses and prepare for next week.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, I guess. How do you deal with forgetfulness? Like, forgetting this knowledge. So I get, in this, while we are in this moment, I get what you're saying. I think is it just about keeping your prana high?
Oh, no, let me ask you something. Are you working?
Yes.
And what's your goal?
Getting the job done?
So, how do you, do you forget getting the job done? How do you not forget?
Prioritize?
It's a question for you. How do you not forget to make money, to bring your paycheck home, to see next year you can get a bigger paycheck, and to save money, and then to see if you can get a bigger house? How do you not forget that? The reason you don't forget it is because your mind is determined about it. Yes or no, people?
Yeah.
Correct? We don't forget. It's not because there's some magic in it, because internally our clarity, our belief, our determined state of mind is, this thing matters to me and it's important. And so you put time, effort, and energy behind it. Not, by the way, it's not leftover time. Right? It's not after I played basketball and after I ate and after I go on my vacation, then when I have time, I'll go work. It's not like that. It's full on. We don't need to remember what we are sure about as a thing of our life. It's your bread and butter, perhaps you can say it like that. And I'm suggesting the bowl that Mary's talking about is, how you get the butter and how you get the bread. It's important. It's the cow that you are milking, but you've forgotten that. We forget that. And why do we forget that? Because we aren't yet clear and determinate. You see? Is that clear? Does that answer? There's no magic in it. People do ask, oh, how do I remember, how do I make sure I do my practice? I mean, how do you make sure you eat 3 times a day? You don't call me up and ask me that, Then you just sit down and enjoy your brownies all by yourself. Like, nobody calls to ask, oh yeah, I got great rasam here, I'm gonna have it. Oh, I don't remember, how do I have my rasam? Nobody. How do I remember to walk and make sure I don't forget my purse? This appendage that's not really attached is more attached to you than your heart. Yes or no? Where's my bag? My bag. See what's in the mind, what lives there. Nobody ever calls me up to say, Dee, how do I remember to hold on to my money and not give it to other people? Because by accident, I wake up and I just hand it to my neighbor. Oh no, that doesn't ever happen. Never. Didi, I don't have the discipline to make sure and do my sadhana. I just don't have the time. I promise you, no one ever says, I don't have the time to accept a gift or to hold my money or to count my money at the bank. They give you, I gotta count. We don't have time. No, I gotta count. Nobody forgets these things. And no one says, I don't have discipline for this. It's because we're very clear. Our sense of self is tied to some degree or another to these things. That's why we don't forget. And what is happening here? Lord Krishna is unplugging Arjuna's sense of self. What was his sense of self when he entered? Me, my brothers, we're gonna win. I want the kingdom. I want revenge. You dragged my wife's hair into the court, you know? And it's nothing more than unplugging the sense of me and mine into something wider, you know? Vishnu, you have.
Yeah, and I just want to extend this Kushan's question. Like, the salary I can see, uh, things I can hear, house I can feel, but self is so abstract. Like, it's hard to. I mean, even if I do, I haven't seen that. Like, I have really attained something. It's like so fluid, so abstract. So how do I know that I'm going in the right proper?
So I think we're jumping the gun, but I will sufficiently say, can you see your own eyes?
No,
No.
unless there's a mirror.
But if there's a mirror or some water or something, a reflective element, you could see your own eyes, correct?
Yeah.
Like that, you, the self, cannot see itself. It needs a reflective substance. So everything that you see is I'm jumping the gun. But I understand what you're saying. You can see the house, so therefore you feel like that's important and you're achieving something, right? Really? Your house needs remodeling, doesn't it? Doesn't it break down? Did you always have this house? No. I mean, I don't know about you, but there was a time when my family lived in a little place in Gujarat and they didn't have where I'm living now. And there were times when there was no food also in the house. They were farmers, and when it didn't rain or when there was drought, then the first meal was at 1 in the afternoon at the age of 6. You understand? So what you're holding on to is for dear life, that this shouldn't go away. But how do you feel? Some degree of, oh my God, tomorrow, my son, my children, how am I going to pay the house, my health, I'm not feeling so well, the economy is going bad. All this uncertainty is creating a type of, a sense of what is the point of all this? Now you're headed in the correct direction. And self is not to be seen, it's only to be lived. You cannot see your own eyes. You need something to reflect. You are the self. How can you see yourself? It's somehow that sentence is so beautiful. It's so, I don't know, there's so much something in it. You are the self. How can you see yourself? You feel a little humbled and a little choked up, like, oh, okay, I am that. Oh, there's something delicate in that, the moment of you are what you seek, you are it, you are the universe, you are the self, you cannot see yourself. What is the point of looking? You don't need to look, you already have it. We have heard this 1,000 ways. There's nothing closer to you than you. There's nothing closer to you than the self, the divine force of consciousness, existence, and bliss. But it's so close that we can't, and so we keep focusing on the wall. But that's a trap. There's all this vastness, and I think, oh yeah, 500 square foot of space, woohoo. Delusion. Gen Z says delulu. Hi. Okay. 7:35. Good? Everybody good? So we see you next Tuesday. Okay? Jai Gurudev. God bless everybody.